Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of the Green New York Lunchtime Learning webinar series. My name is Brendan Woodruff. I'm the DEC co-chair of the Green New York Council, and I welcome you all today. We've got a really great topic today, especially as we're thinking more about our outdoor plans for the summer, where we're going to recreate and what we're going to do. So a couple housekeeping notes before we get started today. Everybody is on mute upon entry, so if you do have questions as we go along, please type them into the chat box. We will get to all questions at the end, so just type them into the chat box and then we'll get to those. In addition, this meeting is being recorded and a recording of it will be posted on the Green New York website afterwards in the next couple of days, so be on the lookout for that if you missed anything or if you have colleagues that would like to go back and look through this as well. So just as another note here, our next webinar is going to be coming up on May 11th, and that is going to be on the Empire State Trail. So we've got kind of a recreation theme here this summer. So without further ado, we can get into today's program. It's my pleasure to welcome DEC's Director of Outdoor Recreation, Laura DeBetta, to talk about sustainable outdoor recreation.
Great. Thank you, Brendan, and thank you everyone for signing on today and for inviting me to talk about sustainable outdoor recreation, which is perfect timing as the sun is shining outside and hopefully you're all thinking about getting outdoors this summer and hopefully throughout the year. What I thought I would do today is just start with a very brief overview of DEC's role in outdoor recreation in New York State and talk very quickly about the program that I oversee, the Adventure New York initiative, but then really get into sustainability and give you some hopefully concrete tips that you can take with you as you explore the outdoors, again, in the coming months and hopefully many years of exploration in your life. So just to get us started, many of you might think of DEC as the state's regulatory agency, and we are, and you might, when you think about DEC, think about things like permits, pollution, clean air, clean water, climate change, lots of the work that Brendan is doing as Director of Sustainability. But what you might not know is that DEC is actually the largest landholder in New York State, public or private. We oversee nearly 5 million acres of land and conservation easements all across New York State, and most of that land is available to the public to enjoy for all different kinds of recreation. Now, as you can see here, most of our land is concentrated in the Adirondack Park and the Catskill Park, but we also have state forests, wildlife management areas, fishing sites, boat launches, education centers and youth camps, fish hatcheries, as well as developed campgrounds in the Adirondack and Catskill Park. So as you can see, hopefully DEC plays a really important role in providing the public with access to recreational opportunities all across New York State. So kind of recognizing, I'm sorry, I have to learn how to press the down button at the same time as I talk. So sort of recognizing this huge amount of land and infrastructure and role that we play in connecting New Yorkers to the outdoors, the governor and DEC announced a new multi-year outdoor recreation campaign in 2017 called Adventure New York. And that is the program that I oversee. I think my two team members are also hopefully joining today, Laurel Remus and Kayla Baker. And through Adventure New York, the agency and the state are really trying to advance 4 main priorities. We're working to expand access to healthy, active outdoor recreation and connect people with nature and the outdoors at the same time that we're working to protect the resources that everyone is coming to enjoy. And then we also recognize, as you saw, with all the lands that DEC owns and manages in the Adirondacks and Catskills, that our lands can also play a really important role in tourism. And so making sure that people have a good quality experience when they visit DEC lands is also really important to local economies. How we're achieving these priorities generally falls into 3 buckets: physical improvements in access, inclusive programming, and marketing and promotions. And again, I'm just going to really quickly tell you a little bit about what we're doing, just to give you a better picture of all the work that goes on at DEC. So first and foremost, we're making physical improvements to our lands and facilities to provide greater access to recreational opportunities. And we're also working to improve the visitor experience. So as an example, we are modernizing and rehabilitating our infrastructure, for example, our campgrounds. In the top left, that's a new comfort station at one of our campgrounds. Some of our campgrounds are 100 years old. So there's a lot of infrastructure that's being updated in the Adirondacks and the Catskills in particular. We're developing new amenities, new opportunities for people to enjoy the outdoors. On the top right is a brand new fire tower at the Catskills Visitor Center called the Upper Esopus Fire Tower. And it gives the public the opportunity to see what it's like to hike to a fire tower without actually having to go on a lengthy hike. It's right there at the visitor center. Whenever we can, we're also working to make our facilities and our amenities available to people of all ages and abilities. And sometimes, in many cases, that means actually meeting ADA requirements. So down here in the lower right is an example of a boardwalk. That's a new accessible boardwalk at the Willie Wildlife Marsh, just outside of Amsterdam and Gloversville. And when you make facilities and amenities accessible, you're also making them accessible to people, people of all ages, families, families with strollers, older adults. So really everyone just has an opportunity then to connect with the natural resources there. And then one of the other things we're doing is developing new recreation hubs and connecting recreation with communities, such as the redevelopment of the former Frontier Town, which is off of Exit 29 in North Hudson, where DEC developed a brand new accessible campground facility. So that's some of the physical work that we're doing. But then we're also developing initiatives aimed at connecting people to the outdoors in a way that is very inclusive and welcoming. Our focus is on guided, introductory, quality experiences. We want to give people a very positive first experience so that they have the knowledge and confidence to continue to participate in these activities on their own. Some of the exciting initiatives we've launched include the First Time Camper program, which is just like it sounds. iBird New York, which is all about encouraging bird watching as an introductory activity. Outdoors Day, which I'll talk more about later. And just a little teaser coming soon, a new program we're working on is the state's first statewide birding trail. So stay tuned for more on that soon. And then the last bucket is really all about how do we communicate these opportunities. In many cases, the public may just not be aware of the resources that are available to them. So since the Adventure New York initiative was launched, we've really placed a lot of time and energy into enhancing our communications. Our digital promotions, really doing a lot more with social media, working on our printed materials and our signage to make it more user-friendly. And inclusive imagery and language is a major priority for us. We want all New Yorkers to be able to imagine themselves participating in these different activities and visiting these very special places. So that is, again, a very quick high-level overview of what we do at DEC related to outdoor recreation. So switching to sustainability, what is the connection between sustainability and outdoor recreation, and why is it important? Well, when we recreate sustainably, we're not only ensuring our own safety and our own success, but we're also helping to preserve a positive experience for other people. And of course, we're protecting the natural resources that everyone is coming to enjoy now and for future generations. We want everyone to be able to experience the beautiful view or the wildlife that we're encountering. So by recreating sustainably, we're helping to ensure that for everyone. Now at DEC, when we talk about sustainability and outdoor recreation, we're generally talking about a concept known as leave no trace. So the Leave No Trace Center for Outdoor Ethics is a nonprofit organization that provides education and resources to help people recreate safely and sustainably. And what they did was they developed what's known as the 7 principles of Leave No Trace. These are not rules, these are not regulations, although there is a connection to some of them with some of the regulations we have in New York State. But generally, it's a set of guidelines that encourages people to have a positive experience and have a sustainable wilderness ethic. And it teaches us, shows us how we can explore the outdoors while protecting natural resources and spaces at the same time. And what Leave No Trace asks us is what it sounds like. It's asking us to leave no trace that we were there, to leave the outdoors in the same, if not better condition than we found them. Now, Leave No Trace exists on a spectrum. There are, some very basic things that we can all do, no matter how, experienced we are. And that's, I'm going to go over some basics today. But as your adventures become more advanced, then you'll want to go deeper into the principles and understand how you can be even more sustainable in your practices over time. I'm not going to go into all of these in great detail, but really focus on the connections to sustainability and also give us tips that you can all take no matter what adventures you have planned this year. And when I say adventure, I really don't mean anything extravagant. I think of outdoor recreation as anything from swimming at a local beach to hiking or walking in your local park to, to something more advanced like hiking a mountain or a fire tower, for example. So getting into the first principle. So the first one is planning and preparing. And I'll break it up into 2 parts. So the first part is plan. And with that, there's really 2 key things. One is choosing an experience that is right for you. And then what do you need to know about that experience before you go on it? So we want to make sure that everyone has a fun and safe experience. So it's really important to choose an experience, whether it's a hike or a paddle, fishing trip, that matches your skill level. Oftentimes, people find themselves running into trouble when they take on something that was really more than they were prepared to do. There was just an article in the New York Times last week interviewing national park managers across the country who are really seeing an increase in this thing happening, where people are taking on more than they were really ready for. And we just want you to be safe. We want you to have fun. So find something that matches your skill level. Once you find an experience that's right for you, the second part is, what do you need to know about that trip before you go? And the most important thing is to have a backup plan. What we're finding, especially now during COVID, where the nature and the outdoors have provided great relief for people, and many people are traveling closer to home within the state. Places are getting filled up very, very quickly. So you want to have a list of alternate locations and destinations that you can go to in case the place you wanted to go to as your first choice is full to capacity. So what we're finding is that parking lots and parks are filling up quickly on very nice days. So there are certain things that you can do to help prepare for that. One, check out our agency websites or your local park websites to see what the status is. Both DEC and state parks are utilizing the state's 511 system to provide some alerts on closures or congestion, traffic. The new Parks app, Parks Explorer app, you can actually sign up for alerts about your favorite parks and plan ahead and get information about whether parking has reached capacity, whether the park facility itself has reached capacity. The other thing you can do is, if you're able to, is to visit locations when they're less likely to be as busy. On a weekday, for example, or you might have to go a little bit earlier. If a place tends to fill up by 10 or 11 in the morning, you might try to get there between 9 or 9:30. And just in general, we really ask everyone to please just park responsibly and in designated areas. As you can see from this picture, this is I believe this is Route 73 in the Adirondacks. This is a common scene where, you know, people wanted to go on their hike and the parking area was full. And unfortunately, people decide to park on the shoulder. And this is a highway. This is a 55-mile-per-hour highway. And we really don't want to see people walking along the sides of the road. So it will help to make sure you and everyone else has a safe experience. Again, if you choose one that's right for you, and then know what there is to know about a place before you hit the road. So once you've chosen all of that and you know you've done your homework, the next thing is, well, what do you need to bring with you to make sure that your experience is safe and that you're not inadvertently damaging the resources? And our rangers have put together this great information on the 10 essentials to bring with you. This is part of our Hike Smart New York campaign. So these are, in general, the 10 items that are recommended you have with you whenever you're going outdoors. Now, some things you might not need, you know, for more local trips. You know, I don't generally bring emergency shelter, for example, when I'm going to a staffed park or our local preserve. But I always bring more food and water than I think I'm going to need. You know, we have first aid with us. We have extra layers, especially socks, which can get wet. And the one piece of equipment I would really stress to everyone is light. You may not think you need a light source when you're just going on a day hike or something like that. But if there's one takeaway from today that I would really like you to have, it's the importance of a light source. What we often find, or what people often find, is that a hike might take longer than they expected. So they might have been planning a day hike, but they find themselves trying to find the trail back out in the dark. The trip just took longer than they expected. And they didn't have a light source with them. And if you don't have a light source with you, it can make it hard to follow a trail. And relying on a cell phone is also not a great idea because your cell phone battery can die. So I really just strongly recommend bringing with you a simple flashlight or a headlamp and extra batteries, just in case you want to spend a little bit extra time on the summit or having a picnic and you know, find yourself trying to find the trail back out in a little bit of dark. It can really, really be helpful. So the second principle talks about traveling and camping on durable surfaces. So we definitely recommend sticking to designated trails whenever possible. And the reason for that is if you stay on the trail, then you're limiting the damage to the vegetation, which can sometimes be sensitive, especially at higher elevations. Now, during spring mud season, which is right now, trails might be very, very muddy. That's because it takes longer for the snow to melt in wooded settings and at higher elevations. So while your natural instinct might be to walk around mud, unless you're my 7-year-old son, then you're definitely walking through it. We do ask that you walk through mud, not around it. This helps to keep the trails narrow, it protects the vegetation, and prevents erosion. And there are actually certain trails that we ask people to avoid altogether just during this time until the trails have had time to dry out. And the same goes for camping. Now, if you're camping at a developed campground, this isn't necessarily something to think about because you have your campsite. But when you are camping in the backcountry, again, you want to look for designated campsites or durable areas so that you're limiting your damage to the vegetation. So this is an increasing challenge for land managers all across the country. Again, as more people look to recreate outdoors, there's definitely a learning curve. And one thing that I think people are often surprised of is that there aren't always going to be garbage receptacles or recycling receptacles where you go. And that's part of the knowing before you go, right? So as a rule, the recommendation is you carry out what you carry in. So that means whatever you bring with you on your hike, on your paddle, on your fishing trip, you are going to plan to take that back with you. And again, with a little preparation, this is something we can all participate in and help out with. What you can do is bring an empty bag with you and just use that as a designated garbage bag. You can use reusable containers. For example, if you pack sandwiches for lunch, when you're done with your sandwiches, you can use that container for garbage. And that includes your food scraps. So, you know, I know certainly when I was younger, I thought, oh, it's natural, you know, there's no harm in tossing a banana peel or an orange peel, but actually those things can take months, if not years, to disintegrate in a natural setting. So it's really important that everything you bring in is taken back out with you. And that's important with food scraps, especially for wildlife, and making sure that they don't become dependent, for example, on things like that. And now, you know, we have to talk about human waste too. Many areas don't have restrooms, or they might have more primitive options like what we call a pit privy, which is really just a hole in the ground with some privacy around it. So these are the kinds of things to research before you're going on your trips and to know about ahead of time. But again, a little preparation and knowledge, and you can be ready to continue to have fun on these adventures. So when you gotta go, this is a time when we do ask you to go off trail, find an inconspicuous area, avoid trails, avoid water sources, summits, or campsites. And just learn how to dig a cat hole, which is really just a fancy term for a hole that's deep enough to make sure that you're burying any human waste. And again, the importance of this, it's obviously something that can really negatively impact the experience for everyone. Nobody wants to see waste and litter when they're out on a trail or having, you know, a picnic or things like that. But also, these are things that can contaminate water sources, spread disease, and be harmful to wildlife. So a little preparation, and you'll be ready to take back out with you what you bring in. The fourth principle, leave what you find. Again, you want to take only pictures. Things like plants, twigs, they can be habitat or food for wildlife, so you want to leave those things there. You know, carving into trees or putting nails into trees to hang things can damage the trees. And it should go without saying, but graffiti is also something you don't want to do when you're in the woods. Sometimes you might find a cool rock or antlers, or historical elements like remnants of structures that used to exist on the property. The idea is to let everyone have the same opportunity to explore and discover. So leave what you find, take only pictures. Just to quickly touch on the last few Leave No Trace tips. You know, obviously, if you're just going on local hikes or going swimming, you don't need to necessarily think about campfires. But if you are going to be camping and spending the night and are going to be using a campfire, there are ways that you can make sure that that is done safely. Don't burn trash, and also make sure that campfires are actually allowed where you're going. We do have some regulations in terms of where you can actually use campfires. Be respectful of wildlife, don't approach them, pet them, or feed them. And then, you know, last on Leave No Trace, the outdoors belong to everyone, right? We all enjoy nature in different ways for different reasons, and everyone should have the same opportunity to enjoy natural spaces. So, you know, the last principle, which I think is a really important one, is just being respectful and considerate of your fellow nature lovers. So our sustainability team actually spent some time a couple of years ago working with our recreation staff, our campground staff, on looking specifically at camping and how we can promote and encourage more environmentally friendly camping. So a couple of tips that can help you reduce waste, both food waste and trash. starts with packaging. So one thing you might want to do is bring reusable containers so that you can store leftovers and you don't have to toss something because you don't have any way to store it properly. Another thing to do is prior to your trip, you can repack food to take it out of its original packaging from the store and put it into reusable containers. That can reduce trash, avoid waste. Sometimes it also helps to better protect the food from getting damaged in a cooler. For example, there are ways you can repackage eggs so that they don't get damaged and are ready to use when you get to your campsite. When you're cooking and using dishes, you can also cut down on trash by using reusable cooking utensils, mugs, cups, dishes. You want to look for biodegradable and earth-friendly materials like dish soap, sponges, and a water basin. Just like when you have to go to the bathroom, you also want to wash dishes away from any body of water. You don't want to contaminate water with what's called gray water. The other thing is firewood. What you might not know is that the transport of firewood is actually a major way that invasive pests and disease are spread in New York and other places as well. So you want to make sure that you're getting your firewood locally within 50 miles of the place where you're camping. And, you know, there are lots of places that sell firewood and including the campgrounds themselves will usually have firewood for sale right there. There's more tips on our website that I encourage you to check out, especially if you're giving camping a try this summer like many, many people are doing. And then the last piece is on gear. So enjoying the outdoors so you can minimize your impact and also minimize your damage to your wallet by looking at renting equipment or buying used equipment. So for example, you can often rent kayaks and canoes at state park facilities and some DEC facilities. So you can give it a try, see if you like it, see if you're good at it, see if it's a great new activity before you make the investment. There's also companies that do renting. This is not an endorsement, but I know REI has started offering some limited rental opportunities at some of their locations. The other thing you can do is purchase used gear and clothing. Again, REI has used gear. If you live in the capital region, there's a store in Latham called Play It Again Sports that has used gear. I believe there's a store in Ithaca. So there are some stores around. The other great way to get used gear is garage sales, whether physical garage sales or some of the new online garage sales. You'll find lots of people are often selling off their equipment. Maybe their kids have left home and they've got all this outdoor equipment that they're trying to offload. That's another great way to save some money and reduce your impact by recycling those materials and keeping their lifespan going. So where can you learn more and some upcoming events I want to touch on? Please do check out our Hike Smart New York website for more information on those 10 essentials. We actually have a 10 essentials list for kind of spring, summer, fall, and then we also have a winter set of 10 essentials is slightly different. Please do check out the Leave No Trace Center for Outdoor Ethics for more on Leave No Trace. They actually offer a free online awareness course that you can take to really help, you know, learn more about how you can recreate sustainably. They also have some slightly modified guidelines that are specific to recreating during a time of COVID. Coming up, we have some great opportunities where you can learn more, give back. Next week is Earth Week, which is a big week for us at DEC. So I would say check out our social media channels all next week for information. As another little teaser, we are going to be launching a brand new public awareness campaign all about sustainability and outdoor recreation called the Love Our New York Lands campaign. I'm sorry I wasn't able to share more about it today, but we'll be launching that next week. And that will be a great way to help spread the message about loving our lands, protecting these resources, and ways that we can keep them safe and enjoyable for everyone. I Love My Park Day is a great event that's coming up the first weekend in May. It's the 10th anniversary event, and this is an opportunity for you to volunteer, to give back to state park and public lands. We've got a great set of DEC lands that are participating this year, as well as state park lands. Obviously, it'll be a little bit different because of COVID, but we're really excited to be able to put this event on and give people a chance to help clean up our lands. And then the last event is Outdoors Day. We weren't able to host that last year because of COVID, but I'm really excited that we're going to be able to be offering, Outdoors Day events and workshops on and around June 12th. And what these events are they're a chance to try an activity with experts for free and see if you like them. So if you've ever wanted to try archery, fishing, paddling, learn more about hiking safely and responsibly, and all different kinds of things, this is a great opportunity for you to give those things a try. All right, so that was the presentation. I know that was kind of a quick overview, but hopefully it provided some concrete tips for folks to take back with you as you explore the outdoors this year. So Brendan, do we open it up to questions?
Yeah, so we've got some questions here already. And folks, if you do have some more questions, please type them into the chat box and we'll get to those. So that was a fantastic presentation. Thank you very much, Laura. You've done a fantastic job with the Adventure New York program and really kind of elevating folks' consciousness of the outdoor amenities that we have and how to do them in a safe and sustainable manner. So thank you for all the work you've done on that. Couple quick things that kind of went through my head when I was listening to the presentation here is I can't say enough good things about kind of the used gear exchange programs that you'll see at places, and also renting gear. I know there's been a lot of times when I've ended up renting something before, committing to purchasing it. And in a lot of instances, used gear has worked out fantastic for me. It gives it a second life. And also it's a good way with spring cleaning. If you have anything kind of that you're thinking about replacing or that you don't use that much anymore, think about donating that or selling it back to some of the companies that are doing that. One of the questions we had here was about kind of overuse issues and kind of where those are most acute, and does DEC have any resources to kind of find alternatives to those?
Sure, yes. So certainly increasing levels of use has been an ongoing challenge for DEC and really, state parks and national parks all across the country. And COVID kind of really helped us reach a tipping point because everyone was turning to the outdoors as a place where they could recreate safely and still get out and do things. Excuse me. So, the places where we were experiencing those issues before just became amplified during COVID. Certainly places in the Adirondacks, like the route, what we call the Route 73 corridor, which is the area around Lake Placid, is very popular, and for good reason. It's a beautiful place. Also, some places in the Catskills as well. People want to visit beautiful views and places with water, and who can blame them? But those are the places that are filling up really, really quickly, very early in the day. And the truth is, it has spread. So places that weren't seeing very much use before COVID have become very, very popular. So, I would say it's hard to find a place now that isn't being used to some degree. In terms of how we're working on that or helping people to find alternatives, we do have alternative locations on our website in a couple of different places. And, we can, Brendan, maybe that's something we can share after this. And it's something that we continue to work on. So I think you can expect to see this summer, because we expect another very busy summer, you can expect that we'll be putting out more information about different places that people can go to experience, similarly beautiful experiences, but maybe a little less crowded, a little less, congested.
Yeah, and just kind of anecdotally from my personal experience last summer, I avoided a lot of those areas, especially the Route 73 corridor. As somebody who's trying to become a 46er, it was kind of frustrating, but it was the right thing to do. I did a lot of hikes in the southeastern Adirondacks, and those were fantastic. Some of them have views that are just as good as what you're going to get on some of the more prominent mountains. And especially with COVID, it was fantastic to be able to go somewhere and not see other people for a long day, which was very nice at the beginning of this summer, places like that. So there are still a lot of good areas out there. It's just kind of looking at the map. And the other thing you might want to look at is the DEC info locator. We're going to have a presentation on that coming up soon, but that's another thing to look at to find trails that might be a little bit more off the beaten path. We had another comment here that was also make sure that you take supplies, first aid, and food for any pets that you take with you. So if you do have a dog, make sure that you have enough water for both you and the dog, and food and supplies and things like that. That's a really good tip. And another question here, does the website list trails and sites that have rest areas for people with limited mobility?
That's a good question. So we do have a section on our website which describes accessible recreation destinations. So that's a page you might want to check out. I think all of our pages do include information on whether there is a restroom or not, and certainly state parks facilities do as well. So I think generally that information is available on our website. I don't think what you can't do is search, for example, for that particular amenity, but if there's a place that you want to go, that information should be included as part of our description of that place. I mean, I will say though, in general, DEC lands, we do have a lot of porta-johns or privies, but what we don't have a lot of are developed and built restrooms, except at our campground, our developed campgrounds. We have 55 or so campground facilities within the Adirondack and Catskill parks, and those do have generally comfort stations.
Mm-hmm. And another question came in here about state forests. Do those tend to have kind of the same types of trails and amenities and other things like that, or are there any kind of, are they kind of different from a recreational perspective than kind of the forest preserve lands?
Well, there's certainly lots of differences in terms of the regulations or the type of experience that you're going to have, but there are many wonderful recreational opportunities in our state forest lands. From hand launch, boat launches, lean-tos, fishing access piers or wildlife watching blinds, and many, many, many miles of trails. So I would say it's probably an underutilized, I would say those are probably more underutilized than those places in the forest preserve. Lots of great opportunities in our state forest.
Mm-hmm. And another question here, I guess overcrowding is a popular one. Have there been any issues with boat launches or kayaking or things on, water bodies in terms of overcrowding as well as the trails? Sure.
So I would have to get back to you about specific locations, but it is unfortunately an issue as well with paddling. There are areas in the Adirondacks, for example, where it's an issue there as well. So it does seem like it's not just limited to hiking; it is also paddling as well. It's one of those things where, again, doing some homework ahead of time can help you to get an understanding and a picture about, how popular is this location? How likely is it that when I get there, it's going to be really crowded? And that's why, again, I'll just reiterate the importance of having a plan B. So, this is what I really like to do today, but if I get there and it's just looking too crowded, here's my alternate location that I know will probably be a little bit less crowded.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as somebody who got a kayak last year, named it the USS Summer Sanity. I noticed that, compared to when I've gone, in the past, there were definitely some more people out there. But yeah, if you do look and you kind of think about, where you might read on the internet more about and avoid those places, you can find some really good places to go. Another question here came in about swimming in sunscreen. Are there any issues with the chemicals or types of sunscreen that are used and any kind of regulations in New York?
That's an interesting question. So there are sunscreens that are more environmentally friendly, that are biodegradable. I'm not an expert on sunscreens, but I do know that there are choices that you can make that will biodegrade and will not have as much of an impact on the water body, and that is certainly preferable. I would have to look in terms of regulations. I'm not aware of any, but I don't want to say something that's not true, but I'm not aware of any, but that's something we could certainly do some research on and get back to you on. But, I certainly agree and support with trying to use that biodegradable sunscreen, just like you would soap for washing dishes and things like that if you're going camping.
Mm-hmm. And we have another question here. How do folks stay up to date with all the latest info?
That's a great question. So definitely staying tuned to DEC's website for anything, anything major, any major new announcements. Our social media, I think our social media team does a great job on Facebook in particular in keeping folks updated with what's happening. Again, I love the new State Parks app. They do a great job of sending out alerts when, places are full or there's any other kind of changes happening, for example, construction or amenities open or closed. That's the primary way that I would do it. The agency websites and the State Parks app and our social media channels as well.
So we've got one last question here. And if anybody does have any final ones, make sure to type them into the chat box now so we can get to them. So it's about the leave no trace principles and using them in public materials. Are there any kind of open source things that folks could use for their agencies if they're communicating to the public about outdoor recreation?
That's another really good question. DEC is an official partner with Leave No Trace. It is a trademarked concept, so we do have a particular relationship. So that's a good question that I would want to find out more about. I do think the campaign that we're launching next week, the Love Our New York Lands campaign, is something that we would love for other agencies to help get the word out on, and that's ours. And it's focusing in on some of the key challenges, for example, on litter and waste. That's been a big one. So I would ask, if you're able to use your agencies to share those messages that we put out next week, that would be really, really helpful. But for any of these questions where I didn't have a firm answer, please do feel free to email me, and we can do a little bit more homework and get you a more concrete answer.
Yeah, sounds good. So I don't see any other questions coming in here. We'll give people just one more second here. Before that, do you have any final thoughts or anything else you want to leave people with?
I want one of the important things for me as Director of Outdoor Recreation and Adventure New York is we really want everyone to have access to the outdoors and enjoy the outdoors. I think it's wonderful that more and more people are getting outside. COVID, it really highlighted many, many things, and it certainly highlighted the importance of natural spaces. And so I encourage you to get outdoors and to encourage your friends and family to do so. I think the important thing is just knowing how to do so in a way that is minimizing your impact. But if we all do some of these, I think, pretty simple things, we can really have a positive impact on public lands in New York State.
Yeah, and we had one quick question come in. It was about the 511 app or website. How can folks find that resource?
Yeah, I think it was 511.org. I think it was the 511.org. And it's the kind of thing where there'll be variable message boards on highways, on major areas leading to our recreation areas, where we're able to get information to those message boards so people can see the latest traffic and closure updates as they're headed somewhere. But if you check out 511.org, you can also find them out that way.
Yeah, thank you very much. So with that, we'll wrap up for today. Thank you very much, Laura. This was a fantastic presentation. If anybody would like to see the slides again, or they want to share it with a coworker, we do post it on the Green New York website, so you can find that over on the OGS website. Just look for Green NY. And just a reminder too, our upcoming next webinar is going to be on May 11th, and it's going to be on the Empire State Trail. So thank you very much, everybody. Have a good day.